You can.
I'm looking at Dan.
Lead the way.
Dan lead off. Let Dan lead off.
Me and Dan have between 9 and 10.
I've been talking too much there.
Me and Dan have between 9 and 10 to talk about every inch of this game. You only have a matter of minutes. 15 to 18 minutes here.
What was the question? How did you spin it?
Give us your broad summary of the game first and then we'll talk specifics. But overall...
Well, talk to me specifics really rather than kind of...
Okay, did you like the team?
Well, when I saw the personnel, first of all, obviously I didn't envisage Martin incorporating Cyrus into that kind of centre midfield position. Obviously, number 8 playing a little bit advanced, but...
Either did Cyrus.
Yeah, so I believe, I suppose that's another interesting topic.
Yeah, I have the comments. Cyrus spoke after the game. In fairness to Cyrus, Chrissy, he generally tends to stop and give good answers. You know, he's sort of not, he doesn't sort of go for the cliche to sort of brush it off. He'll go into it. So he was asked by the daily newspapers afterwards, very straightforward question, what would you ask? Different position for you, since it was coming in training, question mark. I was in there in training the other day. I lined up in centre mid. The manager didn't really say nothing to me, and Gups, that's Steve Guppy, kind of mentioned to me about swapping positions. I just thought it was going to be left wing back, so it did come as a bit of a surprise. Then the manager spoke to me today when we got to the stadium and asked me if I was comfortable playing in there. I told him I was perfectly fine, and he told me to play my game, get out, get on the ball, drive forward, and also cover Matt Doherty with Sisto. So
what would have happened if he had said, no, I'm not too comfortable?
It would have been. I don't think you don't say no in that scenario, though, can you?
It's an interest, even from a psychological point of view. It's like pure psychology. It's an interesting question to ask a player, because really you'd feel as if it's not really a question. No. You'd feel as if the manager's really, telling you that's where he wants you to play. And I don't know too many players in that situation, even if you're a little bit uncomfortable, a bit nervous, and actually thinking, I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable, would answer. You'd feel almost obligated. I think every bone in your body, you want to play for a start. You want to help the team. You're motivated. You want the jersey, and it's almost a case of I'll play anywhere.
Sure.
Give me the point of the question for me is pretty much redundant. Once you're asked that question, although it's phrased as a question, there's only one answer you can give.
The one thing about Cyrus, I will say, and Martin Neal did stuff on Saturday after the game with daily reporters as well, and the thing that keeps coming up and what this is about, I think he just doesn't think there's enough legs in the team. He doesn't think that there's enough sort of real athleticism or people in that team that can cover ground in the way he would like. It's the one thing that keeps coming up. Sometimes it's directly with respect to Cyrus Christie, other times it's in a very general discussion, but it comes up again and again, and I think ultimately he talked about his physical conditioning and so on.
Totally. We'll get into the merits of Christie playing in midfield in a second and whether or not it's something he could do, and he got man of the match. But actually let's just talk about how it came about that he was in central midfield. Kenny, you're a player. You're in there all week. Representing your country is a big thing. You're at the Aviva, you're in Dublin, it's on TV, it's a big night. Is it fair to do that to a player, to throw him into a position he hasn't played in since he was 14 with that kind of warning? That night could have gone very badly for him as well. He hasn't had that many caps. It just strikes me as emblematic of the whole setup, that this is just throwing stuff at a wall, lastminute.com, not enough being done in training, and sometimes we'll get away with it, and other times we don't get away with it. Like, imagine you were thrust into midfield.
I can only speak on a personal level. So if I was asked to play in a position I was a little bit unfamiliar with, a little bit alien to me, I think that's probably fair in Cyrus's case, that he hadn't played that position since 14. He was 14. Ideally, I'd want some notice. And not only would I want some notice, I'd like the opportunity to try out the position in the days preceding the game in training, ideally, whether it's an 11v11 or smaller numbers, whether it's 20-25 minutes in a replica game, just to get out there, get a bit of a feel for the position. Even if it takes the manager to stop it a few times, Ken, this is what I'm expecting of you, this is what we're looking for.
Well, he said, in fairness, he did do a bit in central midfield, but Martin O'Neill said next to nothing to him, and Steve Guppy said you might be moving position, and he assumed it was left wing back. So that was his preparation. But there was no sense of stopping it and Cyrus, I want you to move here, and when Matt Doherty's here, I'd like you to do that. There was none of that. He was just thrown out there.
I suppose a bit of that's what I'm saying. A bit of clarity for me would help, because from my point of view, I always like to have some clear pictures in my head. If I do start, generally most players know who kind of do, if you're going to start, give or take maybe 2 or 3, and just have those clear pictures in your head. No basic stuff, visualisation, whatever you want to call it. What situations are going to arise and go through, so you feel as if mentally you're kind of prepared when you go onto the pitch. So that maybe to not have that and to have it kind of sprung on you, you know, you need to be a certain type of personality to kind of deal with that. And well, no, that's fine. I can deal with this, yeah. But it wouldn't be ideal.
No.
I think most sports people would tell you that. You know, they'd like to have a little preparation time in that position, be a little bit comfortable in that position. You know, just in terms, even from a mental point of view, even more so than the tactical, before you actually step onto the pitch. That said, though, I think the argument that Dan's making in terms of him playing there, I think there's a sound.
We'll come back to that in a second, but that is not the point for a moment, to be fair. That is really worrying that that's happening. Like, if you were to say, well, there's been a theme in the last year to 18 months that Martin O'Neill is not doing enough preparation, that's eked out from different sources in the camp. And you were to say to me, think of something mad that he would do that almost like is unfair on O'Neill. Like, give us a mad example of something he'd do. I'd be hard pushed to think of something more ridiculous than telling Cyrus Christie when he gets to the stadium, by the way, you're in central midfield tonight in a competitive game. I'd almost say, like, O'Neill wouldn't do that. So that's happened. I think that is really worrying.
Yeah, I mean, I by all accounts, this is how Martin, he probably wouldn't be the only manager. He'd probably in the minority of managers who literally just give the team when they get to the stadium. It's probably not general practice. And like I said to you before, when it's a case of he names the team and you're in the position that you expect, and when you're actually playing a system which you expect to play, for me, to a certain extent, you kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
But I think when you come to a stadium and a manager maybe names the team and there's a change of system, which you're not expecting, and there's also a change of personnel into different areas of the pitch, which you're not expecting, for me that's very difficult to deal with if you haven't done the necessary preparation on the training pitch. For me, in that situation, Joe, if that's what you're suggesting, then it's very difficult, if not impossible, to make the argument that you're undercooked and underprepared going onto the pitch. And I think any sportsman at really any level, let alone at the highest elite professional level, will tell you that. I mean, that almost comes under basic common sense. And
particularly the argument now is, well, that players aren't probably used to that sort of off-the-cuff way of doing things at their clubs. You know, I don't think, I mean, you mentioned there kind of there's possibly a minority of managers that do that. I mean, it's just not the way that things operate these. I would imagine
in terms of naming the team, I don't think I think people who named the team in there before whatever reason it is, a psychological angle, keep people on their toes, everybody thinks they're involved, so the mindset of everybody, 18 players going to the game is right. Even in those circumstances, the work's still being done. I'm not saying the work's not being done. I'm saying regardless, the work's being done during the week, even if he's rotating players on the pitch, keeping people guessing. The system's out there, the style of play's there, in and out possession. This is what we expect, like set pieces for and against. You all know your jobs. Now, an hour before kick-off, this is the actual team. But when the team's named, you know your position and you know your responsibilities in the team. That's pretty much what I'm saying.
So point made on that front, drawing a line over that. There is logic behind Christie in midfield.
Yeah, because I think Martin made a point about Sisto being one of the more influential players. Or was it actually Hareed? I'm not too sure, the Norway manager, when he was asked about Christie, and I think actually
they've all sort of said it.
Yeah, said Sisto, not so much in terms of 1v1 situations against Matt, but when he drifts onto the inside and occupies those little pockets, and sometimes it's not possible for full back to come in. I think Martin was making the argument you want your strongest central midfielder from a defensive point of view coming into contact with him in that area of the pitch. So you could argue no better than a natural fullback in that area of the pitch who's got those natural defensive instincts to go and engage with him. So that for me kind of makes sense. And I think we saw a bit of that during the game. Cyrus Christie sliding across, doubling up with Matt Doherty, going engaging with system. And he looked reasonably comfortable from a defensive point of view when we hadn't got the ball. I think that's absolutely fine.
But does he stick with it tomorrow then? Because tomorrow I'm trying to look at the suggestions, the Wales team, you know, that on that left side it could be Tom Lawrence, and they've got Brooks and Harry Wilson at Derby. That could be they claim it might be a 4-2-3-1 and they might be the 3. So if you don't have that obvious Sisto style threat there, does he persist with Cyrus there tomorrow?
Well, I think the flip side of that, of Cyrus being in there, for me, I don't think where he's at his best when you do flip over possession of the ball, and generally we flip it over 5-10 yards outside the penalty box, so that's where we get penned in. And when we flip it over and somebody goes, pops the ball into Cyrus Christie's feet, 10-yard ball with pace, under pressure, in a congested area of the pitch, which it is, because that's where we all are, opposition and us. He's got to play with his back to goal on the half turn in a congested area of the pitch, and he's not used to that. And I think that's what he'd find most difficult of all. not in his normal full-back position, receiving the ball wide to the touchline with the whole picture inside of him. Now he's in the mixer on the inside. It's a totally different picture.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a strike. I think that's where you lose out, as opposed to maybe potentially a Jeff Hendrick or a Robbie Brady in there who can maybe receive the ball and be a little bit more comfortable. So that's kind of that's the flip.
Kevin Kilbane and Gary Breen did a piece of analysis on Virgin TV where they just felt Ireland were constantly too deep. And he was like, and I guess you might jump to mind, if other defenders there, they would have said we need to get further up, because what was happening too often, and they did a piece which showed it quite well, was the midfield were at times caught between pressing or dropping back, and suddenly the midfield would look around and the defensive line was a good bit behind them, and there were pockets, big pockets for Danish players to get into. Did that strike you watching it? Yeah,
I didn't see the analysis, but I knew what I saw with my eyes. So yeah, what I saw, I hear a lot of talk about us with this intent to drop deep and defend the edge of a tactic of ours. I don't think it's a tactic. I don't think it's spoken about in the dressing room or on the training pitch that we're going to defend, we're going to drop, concede possession and drop to the edge of our box and look to counter from deep in our half. I don't think it's a tactic. Yeah. I think naturally we just get driven there.
I've seen a suggestion that it's a byproduct of we're not well drilled enough. You've got, so we talked about the Christie situation, and almost there's an element of professionals. Right, safety in numbers, let's just all go back together. That's what it is.
That point has been made. I mean, I'd see what Kenny's saying, that in the sense that Martin O'Neill, now, okay, you can't really analyse press conferences too much, let's not get carried away, but he always says a lot of the right things. And, topics such as the team defending deep has been brought up. Yeah. He generally will say, I agree, the team was defending too deep. I agree with that point of view, but that doesn't explain the fact that it keeps happening. And he says the right things about we want to start in the front foot, and we always hear the buzzwords and the things, the buttons that we want pressed, and before a game, where we're going to go out and do this, and then you get to the game, and afterwards then you end up having the same post-mortem, a bit tentative tonight, defended a bit deep tonight. So I think they're not unaware of it.
Yeah. But I think we become tentative, Dan, as a result, because we're not having an effect in terms of putting that pressure higher up the pitch. I think there's a desire to go and do it. I think at times they're actually being verbally encouraged to do it from the side, but there's one thing about being willing to do it and actually being set up to do it and everybody in sync. Because at times I saw Shane Long and Jeff Hendrick drive out to the two Denmark centre halves to try and put that press on a little bit higher up the pitch. And at times the ball was just played on their inside into Shoney or Delaney in space to receive the ball and take them out of the game. And once that happens once or twice as a front two, you think to yourself, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. I'm not pressing. There's uncertainty in behind in terms of who's actually going to back up that press, who's going to be the centre midfielder who steps out and engages that deep midfielder. But this is... this is part of the kind of preparation that you're talking about. And I think it's a shame. Martin spoke about after the game. We've got to get a bit higher up the pitch. Maybe we'll work on that over the next couple of days. That's great for me, because if we've been working on that over the last couple of days on the training pitch, and more importantly, reinforcing it in the video analysis room, there's big gains to be made. There is big gains to be made from that, even in a short period of time. Opposition keepers got the ball, two centre halves split. What are we going to do? Two centre halves go and engage them. Two centre forwards, they can't play. What happens next? You know what happens next. One of the opposition centre midfielders will drop in between the two, make it three, overload it. They'll play 3v2 and they'll play out. What are you going to do about it? You've got to send another player up. Who's that other player going to be? It's going to be one of our centre midfielders. And this is what you talk about on the training pitch, in the analysis room. This is where you work. You send one of your centre midfielders high up the pitch, 3v3. Now they can't play. Where's the next ball? It's the fullback. Keeper's got a kick now, 30, 40 yard diagonal ball to the fullback. But it's a game of chess.
I hope you're right. I hope they're doing that and not playing five-a-side too often. It was put to O'Neill, stick on your headphones there, that obviously clean sheet was good. A bit more creativity was put to him. We need a bit more creativity, Martin. What do you think?
Very much so. It's exactly that. That's it. Really as simple as that. We've got to try and be more creative if we can be. Got to try and use the ball in the final third, and be confident on it. Those are the things, absolutely. So I'm in total agreement with you. We've got to be more creative.
And is that a mindset, do you think?
No, I think it's a lot of things. I think it's players. Some of the players that we have wanting to. International football, I think, is. The gentleman beside me will say, is a step up from club level, and it's making that adjustment in a game. It's not just as easy as that.
It was Richard Keogh beside him, by the way, who I'm sure his eyes started darting around the room to see what did he mean by that. So some texting, there's different opinions on the O'Neill thing, by the way. So somebody does say, not unreasonably, if Christie is a panicker, and would think about it too much, maybe last minute is the right thing for him. I think that's fair enough, point two. But maybe you would like Christie to have said, well, funny enough, he played me there in training a lot, and he gave me a few pointers and said various things.
I can't
like
imagine.
He's a confident fella, Cyrus Christie now.
Is he?
Yeah, he's quite a confident fella.
And he said
outwardly anyway, I guess. You know.
He said specifically O'Neill didn't say much to him on the day, and Guppy said, "How do you feel about a change of position?" And he assumed it was left full line. Lads, how are the teams supposed to be any good if they haven't even trained in their in-game positions, let alone the overall system? Not training with the players in their final positions is outrageous. And somebody else says, in fairness, Paul and Cork, Pep, a genius at putting fullbacks into midfield at Bayern. Mick used to play Steve Finnan on the right of midfield. It happens, needs must. Again, we talked about the merits of Christie in there, potentially. On the creativity point, so one shot on target. It was the Christie shot, funny enough.
Yeah.
And that was a good moment. You would say Callum Robinson really upped things for them. So how do we get more creative? There's talk of Shane Long maybe having some fitness issues ahead of tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
O'Dowda comes out naturally as well. So O'Dowda's out of the game. So there's one obvious decision. I wonder, do you drop Hendrick back and put Callum Robinson in there?
Yeah.
Hendrick maybe on the left side might necessarily be as suited to it. There's options, but there's a natural change that's forced upon them, because I think in that system O'Dowda was a big part of the plan, to be fair, that is sort of energy breaking forward. So I don't know how they...
Well, I think there's obvious that there's clear alternatives there. Jeff just drops back a bit deeper where he's more comfortable into a natural number 8. You take your pick alongside of him. Probably Conor Hourihane would be happy.
So you take Cyrus out of it then, potentially?
Yeah, potentially I would. I mean, I've kind of seen enough of Cyrus, and I wouldn't have a problem again with him playing in there for the reasons that I said. I think there's valid reasons why he plays in there from the defensive point of view. I'd like to see Sean Williams, David Moore in that holding midfield position for me. I think they're our best options in that particular system. I think Harry Arts is a kind of good footballer, good technical player, but for me, that's just not his best position. For me, he's probably our worst defensive midfield. I've got to be honest with you. Like I say, he's a very good player and a good footballer. When I've seen him at his best, he plays an attacking midfielder in the opposition half of the pitch. I don't think he's got those natural defensive instincts. I don't think he reads the game too well. He's a little bit wild in his challenges. We saw another yellow card. Don't really think he spots danger enough in that area. That real defensive mindset, people who sense it, get across, screen things, make tackles, interceptions, not necessarily going off their feet, track and run as old, really comfortable in that area of the pitch. I don't think he is. So for me, kind of Sean Williams, David Moyler, give a little bit more balance in that area of the pitch, and obviously up top Robinson for me has to start. I like what I've seen so far, and throw it really more of a natural centre forward. I mean, Jeff for me is not a centre forward. Another centre forward up with him, whether that's Sean Maguire or Hogan, and let's have a look at the two of them. Any type of potential partnership that could be forged high up the pitch.
Is that a team? Is that a mix that can be a bit more creative and try?
Can be, but you say for me, creativity. We all want to be more creative. Martin mentioned we need to get more touches in the last third of the pitch. So again, it comes back. Well, how are we going to get into the last third of the pitch? Yeah. Now, for me, we have great difficulty in getting from the edge of our box into the opposition last third of the pitch for obvious reasons, in terms of our inability to play out under pressure and play the ball up the pitch. And when we go back to front, generally it's to Shane Long who's up against two defenders. So it's very difficult for us to get from back to front when we're defending on the edge of the box. Hence the argument, let's get after teams. Let's get after teams higher up the pitch, get that level of organisation we're talking about. And now we're winning balls 5-10 yards inside the opposition half. Far easier then to spring towards the opposition goal and get those kind of touches and get the bit of creativity higher up the pitch that Martin's talking about.
Yeah, that's a great point actually. If we win it higher up pitch, make our lives a lot easier.
This is the big thing. This is why
the Irish team have always, and back to your day and beyond, there's been a great attitude there. Like they will, if they're told to, they will press.
Well,
it actually suits the mentality.
Wales tomorrow as well, who now Ramsey being out is and
Ampadu is out as well. We should say the effect he had in the game.
So Joe Allen is going to be a very important player in the game for Wales. Joe Allen will be sort of their conductor, I guess. And if you let him run the game to a degree, you'll pay the penalty.
Someone roughed him up in Cardiff, didn't they?
Well, yeah, he got clotheslined, I think, by the McLean-Myler actress. It was obviously an accidental collision, Joe, but it happened, and that took him out of the equation. Actually, Myler was brilliant that night. You know, I wouldn't be a huge Myler fan, but he was very effective in that game.
You're right, and that reinforces my point. So how do we utilise, how do we kind of harness those attributes we're talking about? Good running power, energy, total commitment, players who will tackle. Why don't we harness and use it in the right area of the pitch that can really help us in the opposition efficient half. Now, you factor in a little bit of organisation, get everything in sync in terms of what we need to do, go after teams a bit higher up the pitch, and that's where we'll get our attacking opportunities. We won't get the majority of our attacking opportunities by getting the ball off our goalkeeper and building out from the back through. It's not going to happen.
No, it's a great point.
What will happen is when we pinch the ball off teams in their half the pitch, when they're spread all over the pitch and there's big pockets of space in their half, and we can break and use those energy levels, that pace in the team, that aggressive run to go and break quickly at teams. That's our easiest way in to make chances and score goals. But we're not doing it at the moment because we're getting pushed back to the edge of our penalty box.
And the opposition goal must feel like a million miles away when we get the ball to those players.
It does.
I'd say it does. How do we get up there? Do you have a strong sense prediction tomorrow? I guess it's very hard when you don't even know what the Martin O'Neill team is going to be. That's always a tricky thing to predict. These are final thoughts, by the way. This is your Jerry Springer.
I'd always wait to hear the
Springer. That's your Jerry Springer. We do too much rugby, pal.
This is your Jerry Springer final thoughts with Kenny. In fact, I want you to do it then the camera.
Maybe you should give a winner's this captain speech. No, I'll take that back. You're going to be stumbling over your words like that, maybe not.
Final thoughts with Kenny.
No, look, same system, tweaks, get the players in the kind of right areas. For me, because of the mindset of Welsh players, I don't think they're coming here in good form. Key players missing. I think they've had a bit of a dip, lost a little bit of momentum, stroke confidence since that win against us. So I think there's an opportunity here for us if we can get it right, get ourselves in sync, the things we're talking about. If Martin's that has done that type of work with the players over the last couple of days that he's talking about, in terms of that little bit of organisation, sprinkle a bit of that on top to that willingness, the heart, desire which we already have. For me, that's a huge weapon that we've got, and that can make the difference. I could see us winning it if that's the case.
Thanks so much for coming in. Great having you in.
Pleasure being here with you, Joe.
Oh, back at you, big guy. Back at you.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Follow the sun as it slowly sinks behind Kinsale Harbour before resting your gaze on the boats coming in, where the only distraction is the scent of fresh mussels as you sit back to let the moment linger. Let go and embrace the Wild Atlantic way of life. Plan your holiday now on the Wild Atlantic Way.
When driving on a motorway, keep to the left-hand lane for normal driving. Use the centre or right-hand lane for overtaking only, and then safely return to the left lane. Remember to keep a good distance from the vehicle in front. Never stop on the hard shoulder of a motorway. It's dangerous, and it's an offence to do so unless your car has broken down. And under no circumstances should you ever walk on the motorway. Always expect the unexpected. From the Road Safety Authority, visit rsa.ie.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
Welcome back. And just like that, the man, the myth, the legend, Kenny Cunningham has parted. He's out the door, and myself and Dan will be back for the football show. We'll play you a good chunk of what Martin O'Neill was saying in his press conference, by the way, as well. O'Neill was asked about a few various things, so we'll do that on the football show, and we'll have James Richardson on with us as well. Lads, if I was part of a presentation team in work and our boss just told us that we were heading into the boardroom and that we were going to switch around who was doing what in the presentation, I can guarantee it wouldn't end well, says Janice, who's prepping slides for a presentation in Waterford. Yeah, I know. I'm inclined to agree. Clearly it works some of the time, and clearly Brian Clough was a genius, and players can go out with short notice and do things, but it does feel like the game is changing. And I don't know, I often think to myself, if O'Neill, the player in the 70s, was being told by Clough that, well, look, this is what they did in the 30s, that O'Neill, the progressive, thoughtful player that he was, would have said, well, come on, we need to change things a little bit. Times have moved on. So I don't know. We'll come back to it in the football show. I should just say, before we get to the rugby with Eddie and Rory, we've got a pretty good prize, I think, if you're interested in journalism. We've teamed up with Vodafone X to fuel your passion for sport by giving you the chance to join the Off the Ball team for a week. So you will get to see what happens behind the scenes, not much,